live on the Instagram.
Mine's not going live.
Mine either. So I'm going to come back to the restream. We're going to start the show, and then we can just click over and see if it actually works. Oh, it works now. Now go and do it. It'll work now. Mine's doing it. Sometimes it takes a minute for the software. Technology.
Mine doesn't like it. Come on, go live. Go live.
My editor will edit all this part out anyway.
Connect streaming software to go live.
You click the blue.
Yeah. Preview, connect streaming software to go
Hey
live.
everyone, thanks for joining. Technical issues. You know how that is in 2024. Appreciate you being here. I'm with Stacy McCarthy right now. She is a yoga and wellness expert. She's living in San Diego. We met through our friend Natasha Graziano last year in Los Angeles. Who was there with us, Stacy?
Oh gosh, Natasha was doing that talk. I don't know. Natasha and a lot of other people.
Yeah, like Tom McCarthy came on the
My husband
stage.
was there. Yeah, he was doing some coaching, and then we all got up and did different talks. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there were so many impeccable, powerful people there with their stage presence and their speakers, and she was teaching young entrepreneurs on how to be world renowned speakers as well. So like your husband Tom. So and that's what you do as well, and you do it in the field of yoga and wellness, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Do you want to tell the audience more about that, your experience, how you got started, and some successful tips on what people should do in 2024 for, being an expert like you?
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Uh, yeah, so I, like probably many of you, you know, many decades ago, was living a very hectic life, kind of a type A. I was the COO of a chain of successful health clubs. I was, I had small children, just pretty stressed out, type A. And I was looking for a little bit more of a peaceful life. And I was in the time teaching fitness and well into fitness. And I discovered a yoga teacher that really changed my life. This was before yoga was quite so popular that it is now. This was in 1991. And it just really it checked all the boxes for me. Not only did my body completely change, I was in fitness, but in fitness, I would wake up in the morning stiff, sore, tired. I felt very imbalanced. And I began this practice of yoga, and my body completely changed. It became much more balanced. And what was more important is my mind and my spirit really changed. And it completely changed my life. And I have been a very devoted yoga practitioner and teacher for now over 35 years. And I don't make a lot of promises for people who come and practice with me and have been students. I never tell you that yoga is going to fix your sciatica. Yoga is going to heal your back. Yoga is going to cure your migraines. I don't make all of those types of promises. But what I do tell people is if you will practice yoga properly for your entire life, that at the end of your life, you'll have more health and happiness than if you don't practice yoga. I believe in it that much. I believe that it does create balance in the body where there's probably imbalance. I believe that it brings a awakened calmness to your mind when you practice properly. And I believe that it gives you a soaring spirit. It really connects you to something deeper if you'll really dedicate your life to this beautiful practice.
And what does that look like? You said, practicing yoga, doing it right. So some people, when they're doing meditation and yoga, they don't know if they're doing it right. So, what are your thoughts on doing it the right way?
Yeah, doing it properly. I think it's coming to it. It's one, all of us have conditioned a conditioned existence, habitual patterns that we have, whether it's in our body or whether it's in our thoughts or our emotions. We just have these habitual patterns. And when we come to the practice, if you are not aware and you're not aligning the bones properly, you're not stabilizing the muscles, you're not finding the space where there wasn't space, then you're going to habitualize those same muscular imbalances and structural irregularities. So the key is to bring strength where you're weak, to bring more space, more flexibility, more mobility where you're locked up, and then in the mind to give your brain a rest from all the old, redundant, recycled, unnecessary thoughts and emotions that contribute and facilitate stress. And we all know there's a lot of those. We all carry these emotions of worry, tension, judgment, embarrassment, disappointment. We're complaining, we're blaming, we're condemning, there's resentment. There's so many negative thoughts and emotions that bombard us from the external stimuli. And really, the practice of yoga is to withdraw your senses away from all that bombardment of the pings, the rings, the notifications, the media, all it's really taking hostage of our minds and creating these emotions that we end up living with. And the practice of yoga is designed to, one, have you practice noticing those thoughts and emotions, releasing them immediately, and replacing them with the thoughts and emotions that you want. Coming back to the heart, coming back to love, compassion, gratitude, appreciation. And when you do this, all of a sudden it starts to change your entire emotional life. You start to recognize the thoughts and emotions that are creating your reality. And if your reality is anger, sadness, all of these emotions, then you are doing the things to perpetuate it. And so yoga is that reminder to come back and live from these higher emotions. And when you do that, now you're living in a healthier, happier life.
Yeah, I feel, some of what you said for me personally, just seeing the greenery, just by sitting on the concrete, just by being in the sun, it just loosens everything up and it makes me a lot happier. So that would be disconnecting from the electronics because we're just so in our screens all the time. Right now, I have some lights, I have some natural light, we're on a screen here. So it's like, like the balance, right? The balance of the screens. But, when I'm doing a meditation outside for 30 minutes before popping on here, I had my noise canceling headphones. So I'm still with like the Bluetooth electronics, but I'm not on my phone. I set a timer just so like I'm not on my phone and I'm not being disturbed. But, so it's kind of a balance. Um, so I'm wondering, what kind of yoga do you enjoy, and what kind of yoga do you practice now?
Hmm. Well, when it comes to yoga, I started in a tradition called Ashtanga yoga. It's a very physical practice, but that's exactly what I needed. I needed something because I had a lot of energy, probably some attention deficit, which I think a lot of us had, and I needed something that was really going to ground me and center me. And this practice of the Ashtanga, which was quite a strong practice, required me to be very consistent with my breath, with my focus, and moving my body. And so that was really helpful in the discipline of the practice. I've been practicing for a long time, so now I brought in much more alignment, much more really meeting myself and meeting my students where they're at and what do they need, and a lot more of, you know, helping with the body. Yes, a regular disciplined practice will help give you a lean, strong, flexible body in this style of practice. But more importantly, it's also going to help liberate your mind from those redundant thoughts and emotions that contribute stress. And I'll share a little story with you. Speaking about when you said you went out in the nature and then also noticing your thoughts and the emotions that you have. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic in December, I had a traumatic bike accident. I was riding an electric bike. The front wheel fell off. I went over the handlebars face first. Face was very jacked up. I mean, I was
Oh, I'm so
unconscious. Yeah,
sorry.
it was a big one, and I was unconscious. Woke up in trauma care, and I had tar and asphalt embedded down to the bone. And so my face was pretty bad. And what I noticed after that, and I had to go through a lot of different procedures to help get all the asphalt and tar out. But what I noticed after that
Wow.
is when I would walk through my garden. I have a beautiful garden where I live, and I used to love walking through it and taking care of my garden. I noticed after it that when I walked around my garden, I wouldn't see the beauty in it anymore. I wouldn't see the flowers blooming. I would see which plants were dying, which had to be taken out. I would see all the negative. And I developed this thing on my eye called a chalazion, and it's bad. It looks like a giant wart or something on your eye. It is not attractive at
Oh
all.
my gosh.
And and I realized that I was starting to see the world through angry eyes. That after my accident and my face being like just, I mean, it was bad. I was seeing the world around me with through angry eyes, and I physically, your mind becomes the body becomes the mind. So these thoughts in my mind manifested in my body as this ugly thing on my eye. And right around that same time, about a month later, I got a notification that I was receiving a very big award. It was for the IDEA World Health and Fitness Instructor of the Year. It's like for my industry, it's like the Academy Awards. And I was going to have to give a speech and everything. Yes, very exciting, except for the fact my face is all jacked up and I've got this giant looking wart on my eye.
But no one's gonna see you up
No
close.
one's going to notice that.
You can
I
wear little
mean,
glasses where the frame like covers
and all the
it.
black tar, no one will notice a thing.
Ah!
And I thought
Wear a
to myself,
fashionable scarf like the Met Gala.
well, I thought to myself, I said, Stacy, you teach this stuff. Come on. And so I created a mantra for myself. And a mantra, for those who don't know, is basically a mind vehicle. So I created this mantra that said, I see everyone and everything with abundant joy and unconditional love, including myself, my health, and my healing. And that became my mantra. So every time I would catch myself looking through the world with those angry eyes and a negative thought or emotion would come up, I would snap my fingers and I'd say that mantra. I see everyone and everything with abundant joy and unconditional love, including myself, my health, and my healing. And guess what? This big ugly thing on my eyes started to go away. And they're notorious for coming back and again and again. And sometimes in a day, I would literally say that mantra 40 or 50 times. I would just keep catching those negative thoughts and emotions and canceling them and changing them to something more positive. And it started to go away. Things started to get better. So our minds are the most powerful thing that we have. So although I teach this practice of yoga, because when we feel better in the body, it helps to calm our mind. It's really about helping people with their mind. And that's why I say living a healthier and happier life. It's not about, people think yoga is about touching your toes. Yoga is about touching your soul. It's learning to be still in the middle of the chaos when everything doesn't work, things are going crazy for you. Can you come back to that point of stillness? Can you come back to that abundant joy and unconditional love? Because that is who we are at the deepest level, at our most authentic, essential self, our soul self. We are abundant joy and unconditional love. But we've been bombarded with external stimuli that tells us we're something else. And so the journey of yoga is to come back to that place.
And that can be different for everyone. Like what silence is for you is different for me. So I think that people have the internal struggles like, am I being silent? Am I doing it? And then it's a control, like an obsessive thing. Like I need to have the phone off. I need to be in a quiet place. Like you can find that silence, whatever's for you. Like, I mean, it could even be listening to music. And that's where you get to your flow state, like doing it. It's different for everyone. I think people are so in their heads, like, am I doing it right? Because they hear so many things and people make it so confusing, and I think the stillness can be however we want that stillness can be, and it can be anywhere. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing those things. So what kind of yoga are you doing? What kind of yoga do you practice? I said yogurt. What kind of yoga do you what kind of yogurt are you eating right now? What kind
It's so funny you say that, Katie, because my dad, so many years ago when I started yoga, and as I said, it wasn't very popular there, like over 35 years ago, my dad could never figure out what it was I did. So he's like, "Are you doing that yogurt thing again?" I'm like, "It's not yogurt, it's yoga."
That's hilarious. And now we're on the subject of yogurt. So delicious. It's called So Delicious. It's coconut yogurt.
I know,
Oh,
it's so delicious.
raspberry, blueberry, chocolate. They're not my
Yes,
sponsors on the show yet, but I'm going to reach out to them. But So
yes,
Delicious is really delicious. Like
yes, it is. I've had.
morning, afternoon, evening, dessert. It's delicious. Okay, so what kind of yogurt? I said it again. What kind of yoga are you practicing right now?
Yeah, so I would describe the practice that I do as an alignment based vinyasa flow that meets people where they're at. So that's like a mouthful, and people are probably, what is that? Basically, it's movement with breath, but it's also with a pretty keen awareness of how are you moving. So are you aligning the body properly? Because if you're repeating these poses over and over again with improper alignment, now you're imprinting in the body improper alignment. So by aligning the body properly, now you're imprinting proper posture. And when you do that, now all of a sudden you're breathing better. When you're breathing better, you're feeling better. So think about this. So think about somebody that you know who is depressed and sad. So if someone's depressed and sad, where are their shoulders? Where are their chest? Are they looking up at the stars, or are they slumping and slouching? They're slumping and
Their heart's
slouching.
down. The
Their
heart's
heart's
down.
down. It's closed off. The chest is closed up. What about their breath? Is it smooth and even, or is it short and shallow? Short and shallow, right? Because their chest is compressed. What about their eyes? Are they gazing up at the universe and the wonder, or are they staring down at the dirt? Their eyes are dropped down.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, your physiology is affecting your psychology. So when your body is dragging you down, literally it is dragging down your emotions and your psychology. So by changing your physiology, by learning how to properly align the body, move through life with more lightness and more freedom, guess what? That's going to help your mind, because the mind becomes the body becomes the mind. You start freeing up the body, guess what? Your mind feels a little lighter. You have a lot of pain in your low back. Hey, you know what? You're probably going to snap a little quicker. You're probably going to like fire off some anger balls a little bit quicker. You feel great in the body. Guess what? Walk into a room, you're probably a little happier. And vice versa. If your mind is full of stress and worry constantly, then it's going to affect your body. It's going to need somewhere to go. And that goes back to my example of the angry eyes. I was so in my head about appearance and my face and all of this stuff going on. I'm in my head that my body then manifested something to really make me think about. So this is the body mind connection that we talk so much about.
Yeah. Yeah, and having more oxygen to the brain, you know? So for like I personally as an artist, when I'm on the screens and when I'm doing certain things, when I do my voiceovers, like this is one of my voiceover booths, and I will literally shut this door and I'll be in my booth, and I like to do my voiceovers in the dark because I can get more intimate with my characters when the lights aren't on and I'm dark and I just have the screen as my light. So there's the moment of that. But then there's also the moment of making sure I'm getting the serotonin and the sun, because it opens up my heart, it opens up my spirit. I can just like watch the breeze, watch the clouds, and it creates that, like you were saying, the shift in the space in between, right? And so having that proper oxygen flow through our brain. And then also, I love Paul Chek. Paul Chek, Paul Chek. He has an amazing podcast, but he has this 5-part series, and he talks about energy is energy emotion. So you're saying moving the body. So sometimes I was celibate personally for 7 years. So I wasn't really moving that active
Yeah.
hip area of my body, but you have to like really move that because there's so much, serotonin, cortisol in the gut, which is, they say it's like your first brain
Yeah.
sensorially, like the gut. So you have to be moving those things. And I grew up as a cross country runner. So I used to run 50 miles a week. So, and it's the structure of the shoulders back and the chin not up too high, so it's not cutting off the esophagus, and being aligned properly with your body. So I think the yoga gives the physicality of the discipline of the structure of our human temple and vessel, and then the energetic moves for our chakras and for our energetic fields of what we exude out our opening channels, and then also what we take in from other people, that those energetic fields that we take in from other people, and then moving around that energy that some people can see auras and some people can see colors, and then some people like aren't just seeing the energy, right? Unless you go like that, you can see some cool energy happening. But most people woo think woo woo, or they don't know about energy, but you can feel it. You have that intuitive hit on your central nervous system, and you feel it in your heart, and something's off, or if it's a good vibe. So people go off of like vibes, energetic flow. But the discipline of your yoga that you're doing, and the structure of the discipline of the body movements, which helps then move the alignment of energies, like bring in, clearing out space for new energy to come in, and then removing toxins also. Is that kind of what you're saying to a certain
Yeah.
degree?
Yeah. So if you think about it, so yoga is a body, mind, spirit, or body, mind, soul practice. But what does that truly mean? What does that truly mean? And much of what I'm working with is energy. And by the way, we're 95% energy. People think we're physical matter. We are mostly energy. That is truly what we are made of. Everything is energy. I didn't say it. Albert Einstein said it. Okay. Everything is energy. And we are primarily energy. So yoga has a way of working with the energetic body. So if we look at this body, mind, spirit, body, mind, soul, from looking at it through a yogic lens, the whole person, yoga addresses the whole person, all of our systems, endocrine, respiratory, hormonal, it addresses everything. But when we look at the whole person from a yoga perspective and a yoga lens, it's 5 layers of us. The most outer layer is our musculoskeletal system. It's this body. And so we need to align the bones, stabilize the muscles, find space and flexibility so that our body is properly aligned. When the body's properly aligned, then we work with the next layer of the body, which is really something we call pranayama, the pranamaya kosha, which is your prana, your life force energy through the vehicle of your breath. So we start to move the breath when we can actively move the breath. Now it's bringing more clarity and vitality to our mind. This is what we were talking about off camera earlier. So now we've stepped into that third layer of the body, which is something called the Manamaya Kosha, which is really working with the mind. How do we move our energy up through that chakra system, from our lower chakra systems in the deep rooted core of the body, all the way up to the top of the head, but more importantly, we're moving that energy up into the center of our brain, to the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the seat of the soul. The pineal gland, when we start to bring more of that clarity up, now it's releasing the hormone of melatonin. And a lot of people take melatonin just to relax and try to get to sleep, but we can do it energetically. So now we're moving that energy up. We're finding it into the center of the brain. We're activating the pineal gland. We're flooding our body with beautiful melatonin, starting to feel the serotonin, the endorphins kick in. Now we're feeling happier, healthier. And then when that happens, the fourth layer of the whole person from a yogic lens is really our intellect. It is our tapping into our intuition, into our deep insight, and we're intellectual beings. Everything that's been created is through our intellect. And so now we're really tapping into this great new wonderful world of expansion of our subconscious or our superconscious mind. And this is where we actually hear our insight, we hear our intuition, we're tapping into it deeper. And then as we tap into that, it reaches our fifth layer of the whole person, which is my personal favorite. And this is called the bliss body. This is the Anandamaya Kosha. And what this is now we're walking through the world more connected, more of a sense of oneness, more of a sense of connection. And you can personify this any way you want. The personification could be naming it God, naming it nature, naming it universal source. Your personification is up to you, but you feel a connection, and you're starting to walk through the world with this sense of unconditional love and abundant joy. And that's what really we're meant to do if we're self-actualizing, is to discover ourself, what our unique talents are, to what are those unique talents, what do we have to share? And when we go out and share it, we're making the world a better place. And this is self-actualization. And self-actualization is the step to enlightenment. So the thing I love about yoga is it's not just talking about your body. And that's where most people come to it. It's like, oh, if I could just touch my toes, I'd do yoga. No,
It's an excuse.
it's an excuse, but now you're really living your whole person. You've become whole. And this is the beauty of, as I said, like a proper yoga practice, of really going deep.
And it's one step at a time, and it's making the choice, because like everything you're saying, I'm on par. Like I get it. And you mentioned intellect, and that's the thing. Like we get the information on an intellectual level, but the thing is, we may know it on an intellectual level, and then applying it is a difference. So there's people who aren't abreast of what you're speaking of. Like I get it. I have a divine knowing. I know it. But there are so many hurt, insecure people pleasers who are out there who kind of knew themselves, and then they started people pleasing, jumping hoops. I can identify with that, going out to the world knowing my power, then saying jump how high, run for how long. And I did this whole cycle on like, okay, I did everything I wanted to do, I did everything the way I knew. Now I want, to seek more mentors and da da da. So but there are people out there who are scared, who never knew their light, who don't know the things that you are saying so eloquently and gracefully, which I love. But then there's so many like judgmental people out there. And let's get true. Like you already know, like if they're judging this chat right now, or if they're judging what you're saying or what I'm saying, they're like, well, good for you. And they're just judging. And when we judge other people, we're just judging ourselves. And then maybe that's a start. Maybe that's a start. Like, who am I judging? What am I vibing with? What chords strike with me? Like, oh, some of these things, we're having a conversation. There's no right and wrong. There's weak and strong, but we're having a conversation, and it's like, oh, I vibe with that. I vibe with that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to take some notes. I'm going to try it myself. And then I'm going to share with someone that I care and that I love about. And these things I don't vibe with, but let's check in. Are we like judging those things? And if we're judging them, what is that saying about us? Particularly a short story. I am who I am, blah, blah, blah. Someone comes into my life who I let in on an intimate level, and then they started berating me like passive aggressively, and I was so blind to it. Like you're so blind when you have good intentions about someone until later, and then you realize they were projecting their own insecurities onto me, and I was all good. I had it good. And it's like, and here I am. I'm back to who I am. Well, there's no going back. There's only moving forward. But I was able to meet myself of where I was and reclaim and be here walking on my path. And so we all go through different journeys of who we listen to, our environment, what we do, what we don't do, knowing stuff by reading books, read all the self books, listen to all the podcasts, do all the things, but taking applied action and doing it the smart way, right? And doing it by what you were saying. For example, a short thing, everything you mentioned, in addition to like breathing, and how are we breathing? You were mentioning how we're moving. So how are we breathing? So I'll remember to check in, like, how am I breathing? Am I like choppy breathing, fast breathing, talking really fast? Because I get very like manic and very excited, and I'm going so fast. And it's like, take a breath, slow down. Am I like yang, 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 putting it out there because it's who I am? But then just because that's who I am, I'm other things as well. So it's shape shifting and trial and error. And if we're gonna make a choice to do something, it doesn't have to be forever. We can just try something. Let's give it a week. Let's give it 2 weeks. Let's study with this coach. Let's do this yoga program. I like these things, kind of ask questions and pivot and shift. And it's an ongoing practice, right? So those are some of my thoughts based on like what you were just sharing with me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think when you find the right teacher, I think it's important to study with that teacher for a while, because if you bounce around too much, you're getting too much information, and then you're lost. You're completely lost. So I am fairly big on finding a teacher that you connect to, that you really feel is living in a way that you aspire to live like, and study with that teacher, because too many different people telling you too many different things is just too confusing. And the other thing is human nature. Look, um, I do a lot of teacher trainings, and I coach and mentor a lot of people, and I also present at a lot of conferences, and we're always getting evaluated constantly. At the college I teach the advanced yoga courses, I get evaluated all the time. At the conferences, always surveyed. And our human nature, you can have 100, oh great, loved it, blah blah blah, and you will get one like can't stand it, didn't learn a thing, that was stupid, blah blah blah. And what do we all remember? The one that beat us to crap. And what we have to remember is that's someone's own anger that they're displacing. They need a place to put it. So who are they going to put it on? Whoever the closest person is. And we have to remember to stand guard to the doorway of our mind of what we're allowing letting in. So if we're going to allow that one person displacing their anger towards us, unless it's really beneficial feedback. I love beneficial feedback. That's helping me grow. So if they're giving me an opportunity for growth, hallelujah. That's wonderful. I will take it and I will grow from it. But if they're just beating us up with negativity, that's them. And so standing guard to this doorway of our mind is so important. And when you said something, I think that's really important. You said when you're doing your voiceovers, you know, you tune out from the external stimuli. You turn down the lights. You close your eyes. You tune in like a turtle in its shell. This is the practice of yoga as well. So as yogis, not only are we have something called the 8 limbs of yoga. The first 2 limbs are really about the yamas and niyamas, about being a good person in the world. Your character. What is your character? Because if you've got good character, you're not stealing, you're not lying, you're not cheating, you're not doing these things. Guess what? You're going to sleep better. You're just going to feel better about yourself. So we start with that. And then we do the asana or the yoga poses to make our body healthy and happy. Then we work, as I said, with the breath. But then the next one is something called pratyahara, where we're withdrawing our senses away from the external, so that when we move away from this bombardment of all the noise, the reason you're an amazing voiceover person and actress is because you've learned how to draw in, how to draw your senses in. And when you're starting to draw your senses in, now you're waking yourself up to what is the next layer, the 6th layer of this 8th limb path, which is something we call dharana, or focus and concentration. You intuitively, your nature knows that if I withdraw my senses from all this noise, I'm going to focus and concentrate so much better. When that
I
focus,
execute. Oh, pardon. I do want to hear you. I execute. I'm able to just make the choices for the craft, make the choices, and just tune right in. Like I am because I get to that space of that nothingness, and I'm able and have the play you were mentioning earlier about the
yes,
flow
stay
play
and
part.
play.
Yeah, I'm able to go into the play part and have so much fun because I know how to get to that safe space where I'm totally comfortable and I make the choices. And I
Yeah.
hit it on the first time. And I'm like that on screen as well. Like directors, like, they love working with me because I'm able to like listen intently and focus on exactly what they want and go all the way, all or nothing. And then, because we always can do a take two,
Mhm.
to really go for it.
Yeah, yeah, and so you intuitively know that. And for everyone who's wondering what we're saying, stay in place. So before we went on air, we were talking about the nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system was just fight, flight, or freeze. This is when we think a tiger's ready to attack us, and we freeze up, we run. And then the parasympathetic is sometimes known as rest, digest, but it can also be known as stay and play. Stay, relax, play, move into that heart-filled space. So with those 8 limbs I was discussing, when you reach this limb of the focus and concentration, once that focus and concentration becomes unbroken, then that's the point where you're moving into that state of meditation, where you're now starting to fall into almost a place of nothingness, where you're starting to connect to that deeper part of your inner self where there's a lasting peace. And then the eighth limb is something we call samadhi, which is really this sense of oneness, of connection. And so this is yoga is super logical. The science of yoga is so intelligent. It's a reason it's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years without it being needing to be tweaked and changed, because it is brilliant and intelligent.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know if you have much experience with cranial sacral therapy, but I did it. It's at Second Avenue in Wilshire. Oh, I love this man so much. And I went in there and I did a bunch of cranial sacral therapy where they put the on the fingertips, the pulses, they can feel the pulse in my heart on different parts of my brain. And it's like having a 3 hour massage in 1 hour. And it just like puts me to sleep. And like you wake up out of like a cloud. And that's so healing on so many
Mhm.
levels. Have you experienced that before and know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and that's again energy, a big
Yeah.
part of it is feeling energy with it. Yeah, and the deeper we
Yeah.
go, the more we understand ourselves, then the more you start to realize how you can capture, regulate, and direct your own energy. Whether you call it prana, life force energy, you call it chi, we all have this energy, and you have the power to capture more of it, to direct it, and to regulate it where you want. Because the reality is, the more energy you have, the more you'll be able to share your gifts out in the world. Look, if anything in life that has any real value is going to require a certain amount of energy. The challenge is most people run out of energetic gas while they're climbing the mountain of success. And so, when we're young, our bodies are just exploding with growth and vitality. And then somewhere in our 20s, we reach a peak in our vitality and gravity sets in. And that's when we begin this long, slow decline. And bit by bit, our muscle mass shrinks, bone density decreases. And then with these changes come other shifts in our strength, our balance, our stamina, our flexibility, our mental clarity. And then as the years pass, more shifts start to happen. We don't sleep quite as deeply. We're more prone to certain diseases. Recovery from injury and illness takes longer. Our tissues don't lubricate as well. And all of a sudden, we've gone from like these wonder years of our 20s where we were like a rocket ship that was soaring to the I wonder what happened years. Like, what happened?
Yeah,
And
I
we
see
lost
so
that
many
energy.
people. Yeah, I see so many people, and it's like they just something happens and then they just let themselves go and then they just let it go. Like they don't
Yeah,
like snap into it and revitalize. Not everyone, but a lot of people I've seen, it's completely sad. And it's because they listen to old information instead of listening to their own intuitive hit and instead of
right.
listening to your own intuition. So instead of doing what everyone else is doing externally, like find out what works for you. Now, I
And
couple
there
of
are
things.
those people, I will say there are those people, and there's a lot of them who have fought back, who've decided not to coast, and they are living adventurous lives. They're starting new careers. They got powerful bodies, peaceful minds, a soaring spirit, because they have learned the techniques of really addressing the whole person and how to address their energy. And that's a big part of it, of really understanding this. And when you do, it's life changing. It truly is.
Well, it's someone tuning into this episode here, and that could be the stroke of inspiration for them to take their own applied action, however it is for them, in whichever principle. So, I mean, that's the whole point, to be a ripple effect and come and share. So
Yeah.
grateful that we're here having this impactful conversation during Mental Health Awareness Month. It's super important. I personally grew up doing Kundalini yoga. I'm
Mhm.
very intense. I'm an intense Scorpio. I love Tibetan meditation. I love getting to the root of that feeling, and it's just like, it feels so good, and like moving the energy. And I had no idea when I was 8 years old that's what I was doing. I grew up very Greek, very independent. We had our own space, and so every time I got out of a hot shower after I was like really, really hot, and my brain was totally relaxed, I would spend 45 minutes in the dark, and I was doing these things, and I was going like this, and I was doing things like moving around. And then when I actually started practicing Kundalini at the Golden Bridge years ago, they were doing the things that I was naturally already doing. And I didn't know I'm like a Kundalini baby. Like I started
Yeah.
doing Kundalini when I was a kid. So it's like when people actually tune into and find their physicality, what adjusts, they may find out some moves like, oh, I'm already aligned to this in a certain way. And that's how you kind of find your community, and you find how we're aligned on this energetic field, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is cool. And it's cool that you just like opened yourself up to that at such a young age and experienced it.
Yeah, and I had the space to do it, so I know that's a big privilege as well. So really quickly, because your children, what kind of yoga do they like to do throughout the years, and what do they practice now?
Well, both my kids were athletes. So my kids are grown, and my daughter, so they did yoga with me growing up, but not that much because they were athletes. My daughter played soccer. She was parade All-American soccer player, went to UCLA, won a NCAA national championship. She had a great soccer career, and she's developing a eco luxury development in Joshua Tree, California, which
Really,
is
I
very
want to
exciting.
go.
Yes, yes, it's called Little Pipes
Invite
Ranch.
me. Oh my gosh,
Yes, well,
do y'all ever go to the Integratron?
no, but I know it, and that will be part of it. Yeah, to be able to do some field trips and things there.
Okay, so my
So,
friend Willie Ingram, he's amazing. Willie Ingram, he's a drummer. He was Sheryl Crow's drummer forever on all her tours. And two of his friends, they're females, they're partners. They bought it before the pandemic, but it's the best experience ever. If you haven't gone, I would get 2 sessions back to back. It's like basically it's your hippocampus, and it's like Drano going through your hippocampus, and it's just like anywhere you're stuck and blocked, it's just like you wake up out of it, and it's like you have so much clarity about the things that you didn't know from these
yeah.
sound baths. And it's built on these on geometric sacred land.
Yes.
So go with your daughter immediately. And then a,
Yeah.
a little tip, go like 45 minutes before your scheduled appointment, because they have these hammocks, and you can just like go on the hammocks and chill in the sun. And then also do it so when you're coming out, the sun's setting, so then you can see the beautiful moon and take some photos.
Yeah, it's Joshua Tree is a very spiritual place, and where she bought 20 acres that she's developing. So that's very exciting. Yes, she did that in 2019, right before the pandemic, and has been developed. It was raw land, and she's put in roads, Tesla batteries, solar, wells, the whole bit. Yeah, so that's what she's doing. And then my son was a basketball player, and he played. His story is really interesting. He played basketball at Harvard, and he was the starter freshman year, a point guard. And then he started getting tremendous back pain.
Mm.
Got so bad he couldn't bend over and tie his shoe. And so, the athletic doctors pumped him up with some steroids and said, this will do it. Well, of course, that lasted 3 days, and it came back. And then they said, oh, I think we need to do surgery. And he's like, I'm 20 years old. You're not going to do back surgery on me. So he
Wow.
began studying. We told him about this book by Dr. John Sarno, who was a back surgeon, but who believed in the mind-body connection, about chronic back pain is related to your emotions, your mind. It's deep-seated rage, is the way he puts it, and that you're repressing a lot of anger and rage. And this is when I said the mind-body connection. Now it's showing, where's it going to show up? And for a lot of people, it's low back pain. So he did all this work on it, really worked on his mind, and he ended up healing his back pain within a week, and it's never come back. So
In
he
a
went on.
week?
Yes, in a
And how
week.
long was he suffering before he found out about this book?
For quite a while. He read the book over and over. Then he got the audio book, and he just listened to it over and over. And he started
What's it
then.
called?
It's called The Mind Body Prescription by Dr. John Sarno. Dr. John Sarno has been passed away for a long time, but it's an excellent book, and there's a lot of. So what my son did is he developed a whole course called Mind Body Back, on helping people use their mind and to heal the body from chronic pain. Now, if you've got acute pain, Humpty Dumpty, you fell off a wall and broke a leg, you got to go to the hospital and get it fixed. But if you're not Humpty Dumpty and you have chronic pain, whether it's your neck, whether it's your low back, a lot of times that is the mind body connection, and it's related to some sort of deep seated emotion that is trapped. And you can use your mind for it. So he's doing really well with that. So yeah, both my kids, I've been very fortunate. For all the parents out there, I think people have said that the reason we even have kids is for our own growth, that they're here to teach us something and how to grow. And I believe that's 100% true. I've grown a lot from my kids, but also I think the beauty of having kids is they magnify the things that, my kids at least have magnified the things I really believe in their own special way. So I'm very much into, mind body work and health. I'm also very into sustainability and climate change and the planet. And so my daughter, in her own way, she's into development and stuff, is doing that. So yeah, very proud of them. They're great kids. I call them kids. My daughter's 30. She's going to be 31 this week, and my son's 28. So not exactly kids anymore, but still my kids.
I'm just so excited to meet him. I know I was supposed to like have lunch with your son in LA, and I wanted to show them my brother's studio. But now that you're talking about the back thing, I mean, my brother has a back thing. So I'm going to get
Mm,
him the book and
yeah,
have him do the audio and really support him in that journey. But I wanted to give him a personal tour of Gold Tree Studios on Sunset
yeah,
Boulevard. So he can, there was some like arrangement there that would be beneficial. So I still want to make that happen. So
yeah,
I'll be in LA actually, soon. So maybe you can join and we can all do it
yeah.
together. That would really
And
mean a lot.
and have
Um,
your brother reach out to my son Tommy McCarthy for Mind Body Back, and he can look at
yeah,
the course and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and my brother's studios. They have a whole podcast studio there as well. So
Ah,
maybe we can have him on the show and talk about
yeah,
the specific topic
yeah,
because so many people are in pain. So many people have back pain, and like you said, a lot of people who have the pain, it's emotional pain. It's connected to the mind. So much of the physical pains, it's because of the mental pains that we're holding on to. One short story. Um, um, I got out of a very toxic relationship, and I took a year to just un heal. I was so numb and paralyzed and traumatized. Like had my identity stripped from me, and I don't regret it. I don't blame, I don't shame. I guess I needed to learn those lessons of what I tolerate, what I won't tolerate, and the whole bag of another podcast episode. But the point is, I did this healing for about a year at my mom and dad's house, and then I went to California. My sister made me avocado salads, everything green. Within 2 weeks, 10 pounds left my body, my whole body shaped like a brand new like Aphrodite goddess. Like it was all emotional energy that was like making me a square potato. I was like a box. I was like a square box. And then
yeah,
all of a sudden I did all that work, and then I shifted and I was eating like, like I said, I went to California, the sun, my sister just like was feeding me how she eats, and all of it just shed off me. My hip bones were popping out, and I've never looked back. But it's so important. So
yeah,
definitely would love to have him on the show and talk about that more, mind and body. I think that's really important. Yeah, so I want to shape shift into what you were saying, kinesthetics, how you study that. So share more with people on that topic, if you will.
Oh, well, yeah. So kinesiology, I think you mean, right? Yeah.
Kinesiology.
So for those of you watching, kinesiology is the study of human movement. So it's how we move. And so, this is just, again, aligning the body. And if we just go back to where we started, when your body's misaligned, when we have those habitual patterns, part of it is sitting at this computer, slumping, slouching, driving for long periods. When our body starts to shift, now we've imprinted this poor alignment in the body. And so the study of kinesiology is really the study of human movement. How can we move more functionally to keep us in balance? Because the body is not just parts. The body is a symphony of all the parts working together. So this is a practice of how do we bring our body back into balance? How do we start noticing that, people come to yoga and they're like, oh, it's so hard. It hurts so here. I never knew it hurt here. It's because you've never been aware or mindful about those movements in your body. So yoga brings it all to the surface. Every little ache and pain you ever had, the reason yoga is challenging is it shows up there. Every emotional turmoil shows up right there on your mat. And it teaches us so much if we can just sit with it, be with it, work through it, breathe through it. Because, I say this a lot to my students, that just on the other side of your uncomfortable is your breakthrough. On the other side of that discomfort is, this is where you're going to grow. That's where the growth is. But you got to sit with
Physical
that.
and mental discomfort.
And mental, both of it. You got to be with that uncomfortable, that discomfort, and know on the other side of it that that's where you're going to have the breakthrough. And I think we can look back in our lives and really see that if we could be with it and not just shove it down so it shows up as an angry eye, it shows up as back pain, but you deal with it, you release it, you sit with it, that on the other side, that's where the breakthrough is going to be.
Two things. One, short story. I grew up as a cross country runner. I used to run 50 miles a week, short term, medium term, long term goals. And so, as a physique, I always think it's important for children to do sports to give them the physicality and the discipline and the structure for, the game of life, right? And not to pressurize them to go into tennis or NFL or the sport, unless they want to. But you don't have to go for the gold in that many areas. But just to have the discipline and the training to set you up for life. So like my physique is of an 18-year-old, and but the psychological part of it is I left my hometown Michigan and I went to New York and LA and I traveled the world, and I would be talking to people for a decade as if I was still running cross country in high school and in a full scholarship for college. And I would catch myself believing my own bull crap. And I was just like talking from my old script. And so I'd remember what I was doing. And then I did that for a few years. But then what happened was I was mentally stuck. I couldn't get back on the track. I couldn't get back on the hills and go running. And I had coaches growing up. So it was really difficult for me to get back on the horse. And it was paralyzing. And it was like you said, I'm like, that's why I said, is it physical and mental? And because I know it's mental. Mentally, I was so stuck, but I did what I did. And that was then. And then my egoic system wrote it out for over a decade. And then I had to really work on hacking that. And it was so difficult. I'm on the track now. I'm physically running, not overrunning, because a lot of people who get back into it, they overload and then they get injuries and then they're sitting out for 3 to 6 weeks. So I'm making sure I'm just like baby stepping it, but showing up and practicing it. So question for you. When people are starting, what is good for someone who's just like starting? Like how many days a week for someone who's a beginner and or someone who's like a 1000% pro? Like how many days off, how many days a week, and for how long?
Yeah. So a couple tips is do it so you will do it. And what I mean by that is that if 10 minutes a day is what you'll do, I call it sacral rituals. So if you can just write down for 10 minutes a day, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do some cat cows, I'm going to open up my spine, I'm going to do a couple downward dogs. What will you do? Because what's more important is consistency is the key. So rather than I'm going to go take this big yoga class on Saturday and then I'm not going to do it again till maybe 2 more Saturdays, not as good. Okay. better consistency is key. A little each day. Stand up, stack your body, align it properly, take a few deep breaths, do a downward dog, but a little each day is going to be better than a lot every once in a time. Once in a while. And then the other thing is um, make it a gift to yourself. Don't make it a chore. Just make it a gift. If it's, laying in bed and, doing a couple movements before you get out of bed, do it every morning. Do that. Start making it a gift to yourself, that you're giving yourself a gift. It's not a chore. It shouldn't be a chore. And yoga's not like the Nike way. It's not just do it, just gut through it. It's not like running, like pain, pain, pain. It should be work intensely, but treat yourself with compassion. Like, do your best, but don't beat yourself up. Just treat yourself with compassion and do your best. And if you do that and you treat yourself with compassion and you find the joy in it, you're going to do it for a lifetime. And that is truly my mission, my purpose as a yoga and wellness professional, is to help people practice yoga for a lifetime. And when I say yoga, I'm encompassing the whole person. I am not just talking about touching your toes. I'm talking about the whole person that I addressed, that physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to help you be whole.
Human connections, who we align to, who do we want to befriend to have a part of our communities and grow relationships with, right? Quality
Yeah,
over the quantity,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Uh yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I had something at the top of my mind. It'll come back to me, but the other thing I wanted to share is, fine. We have multi-billionaires who tune into the show. We have neuroscientists. We have the people who are well equipped, educated, and know the things, know the people. Dr. Huberman, Dr. Joe Dispenza, your husband Tom McCarthy, Jim Quick. We got Brene Brown, Caroline Mice, MYSS, Mystic Intuitive. So we have the people, like, before the people who aren't, align in the cycle of the stuff we're communicating. I talked to the 13-year-old who writes to me, and his dad's dead, and his mom has mental health issues, and she drinks, and he sometimes has to sleep outside on a tree. Like,
Mhm.
and he says my show is the only reason why he's alive. And I said, and it made me feel so good. And I connected with him. And I even said to him, share this with your friends at school. And he's like, no, he wanted it for himself. And I understand that. So, there are people who tune in, who are well financed and educated. And there's a lot of artists and entrepreneurs and a lot of people who don't have money, and they're paralyzed and they're scared, and they can't even have a voice and have the conversation and blurt it out and have comfortable people they can talk about and community to them, even though they've been saying it's a buzzwords for a few years. They don't have like some of the normal tools. So normalizing these tools. So like community yoga classes, doing it on YouTube. If you have a YouTube channel, if you have YouTube channel recommendations, I can put it in the show notes for people who are listening to, look in the show notes when the podcast goes live in over 100 countries. But what are some resourcefulness tools? Do you do online classes and like a community class for some people? And what are some tools for people who are, because the thing is, people will spend money on other people, but they won't spend it on themselves. They'll stop and do everything for themselves, for other people, but they won't give like an inch to themselves. I know so many of those people. I'm not one of those people. I learned at a very young age, and probably because I ran cross country and I had massages twice a week and I love them. So I always like love having massages and healing myself on a cellular level. But for the person who's tuning in that doesn't have the financial resources and they don't want to share with everyone, what's a not a secretive way, but something that they can do internally without talking about it with too many people, and just some go-to actionable sources to get them started?
Well, I think, nowadays you've got the internet at your fingertips, and there is a ton of free yoga out there. And so there's so much free yoga out there all over. The key is really, my thing is helping people, as I say, practice consistently for a lifetime. So it is Can you connect to someone who is going to keep you coming back again and again? Yes, I have online. I have a YouTube channel, and I have, online classes. I also teach at a community college, which makes it super accessible for like yoga teacher trainings and philosophy and going deeper into yoga science. So there's all types of ways to practice yoga. And the beauty is you just need your body. You don't even need a yoga mat. You can just need your body. So it's not like you need a lot of equipment or anything. Yoga, if anything is about as free as it can be, it's yoga. I mean, you can make it very expensive if you want. You can buy the fancy clothes, the fancy mat, and a ton of props. You don't need it though. You just need your body and your breath, and that's enough. And as I said,
Minimalism.
yeah,
Minimalism. I love
keeping
that.
it
And then what you, cuz you said in the beginning doing it the right way. So do you have there's so many different yoga types. So
real.
do you have one or two that you think would be the right way to start doing yoga for beginners or for a mid-level person? Like what are one or two one go-to ones that you would recommend?
Well, I think again, because everybody's different. And I started off with a style of yoga that I began with. I was younger then. I needed this certain style because, as I said, my brain was very active, and I needed something that was super active. It depends on the person, and there's so many styles of yoga, and it's so vast and so deep. I would say explore different styles, and again, find a teacher that connects with you. But alignment is important because, as I said, if we're flinging things around, there is a higher chance of injury. You are moving. So if you're throwing yourself into things without being properly prepared, the body warmed up and educated, the ego in place, not forcing, not struggling. A lot of people come in, they're grunting, they're growling, they're forcing, and then they walk out and they're injured. There's no place for that in yoga. Work intensely, but work with compassion, work with breath. Let the breath be the guide. And then kind of the last thing I would say as we wrap things up here is that, yoga is for everybody. There is a level of yoga for everybody, and also learning how to meet students where they're at. And I'll kind of share a funny story with you. Years ago, I used to teach at a health club, and I was teaching a Tuesday, Thursday class at lunchtime, very packed, very full class. And I had this one woman who would always come into class. She always stood in the far back right corner with one wall on the side and the back wall there by the wall. That was her spot. She came in, somebody was in her space. She'd ask them to move over. She had to have that space. Far back corner, always there. One day she came and the class was packed, mat to mat. She couldn't ask anyone to move over. She sticks her head in. I'm about to start. And you see the look on their face. They worked hard to get to class. They really want to get on their mat. They need it. And she's looking at me with those puppy dog sad eyes. And I said, well, if you want, I used to teach on a big stage in front. If you want, you can come up here on the stage and practice. And she goes, okay. So she comes up. We have a beautiful yoga practice. At the end of the class, I'm facing the students. They're facing me, and she's next to me here on her mat. And we bring our palms together, and I say namaste to the class, and the class says namaste back. And then they start rolling up their mats and putting them away. And this gal who's been practicing with me for years now looks at me and she said, Stacy, what did you say? And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, at the end, what did you say when we did this? And I said, well, I said namaste. And she goes, namaste? What's namaste? And I said, well, I'm looking at her kind of shocked. She said, I said, namaste means the divine light in me bows, honors, and sees the divine light in you. And when you are in that place, when I am in that place, then we are one. And she looks at me and she goes, huh, all this time I thought you were saying, have a nice day. And because so she had no idea what I was saying. She was always in this back corner. And so my point really is let's welcome everybody. If you come into yoga with your shoes and your socks on, that's okay. Welcome everybody. Give them your best. And if they leave, they're feeling a little bit happier, a little bit lighter, then it's working and you hope they come back. And that's really what I hope for everybody is that come as you are, practice as you are, and let's be a little kinder to ourselves.
I love that. I think that's so beautiful, and because we get so rigid in our ways, stubborn, stuck in our ways. It's the way I do it. If you don't like it, leave. It's the way I do things. It's the way I've always done things. But if you can be coachable and lean in and shift and try something new, doesn't have to be forever, but make a change and try something new. Some people say if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I love that saying.
Mhm.
But in the terms of what you're saying, look at the gift and the beauty of the unknown when you change your dynamics, right? So I think that's beautiful. And through my journey, I mean, I just did it and I leaned into it and I felt it. Like when you were saying it, I was just like right here bowing down with you. And I remember along my journey, sometimes it would make me, I would do it, but sometimes it would make me feel uncomfortable. And I was a reflective of myself of how I felt uncomfortable of that. And then questioning why, maybe thinking maybe it was inauthentic or not understanding fully of the journey of my practice. And then other times being so fully immersed into it and bowing down and just like really sitting in that flow in that nirvana space and just staying there for a while more than other people, because I would see other people do it and it's like, what are they doing down there for so long? But then sometimes I would be doing it, so it's like it's a different experience every time because we're all ever changing, based on what's happening and what's happening. So love all that. Thank you for sharing. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you for your time today. You're welcome back on She's All Over the Place anytime. Everything will be in the show notes. I always forget at the top of the show, so I'll have to insert it. We are on live, so definitely check it out on YouTube. We have a new partnership with Rad NFT TV. So this video is now streaming in over 4.5 million homes. They have a deal with Sony and PlayStation, so you can also see it on Rad. So check out RAD, Rad, the Rad app. And then also, it's going to be on chain. All my podcasts are on chain now, Bitcoin. So that's really cool and exciting too. Yeah. So thank you so much for our sponsors for tuning in. And thank you so much for being with me. Any last words of wisdom? I mean, you've gifted so much, but anything else you would like to share before we roll out?
No, just thank you everyone for watching and sharing and chatting online.
Yeah, we had so many people come on the live and don't see any questions. This time, I think people really just taking it in and learning, which is great. So yeah, really appreciate everyone tuning in and showing up and being here. And yeah, okay, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.